Well, the time is here. The next game coming from BioWare is Mass Effect. I just wanted to kind of geek out on that a little bit, do a little bit of speculation, and just kind of give out my thoughts about what I think 2025 looks like for BioWare and Mass Effect, and even Dragon Age to a point, and kind of talk about how I think all that's going. So let's jump right into it. So, Dragon Age The Veilguard came out last year, 2024. They've done their post-launch support, they've done their patches, they've done some, kind of small releases with the patches. We know there's no DLC coming, and so what that means for BioWare is that Mass Effect is next up on the plate. The Star Wars team is gone. They are, now with another publisher entirely. And they've made it pretty clear that they are a one project studio now. That project was Dragon Age The Veilguard for a long time. And we know that for the last year or so, it was all Dragon Age The Veilguard. There's been articles and even some evidence that the majority of the Mass Effect team that was in pre-production hasn't been, or at least wasn't full-time on that for quite a while now. But that's not the case anymore. Dragon Age is done. I suspect there will be another Dragon Age game one day after the next Mass Effect, but for now, that's not what's going to happen. So 2025 will be the first year of Mass Effect with BioWare. What that actually means, we'll have to wait and find out. I would, looking at the history of BioWare, especially in the last few years, they always do some kind of update blog on the studio around this time of year in January or February. Last year, I believe it was talking specifically about Dragon Age. Unfortunately, there's also been recent ones about layoffs and things like that. But my guess, if I had to throw it out there, is that here in the next few weeks, we'll likely get from Gary McKay, the head of BioWare, some kind of update just in general, probably reflecting on Dragon Age The Veilguard. This could be around the time that the quarter's over and they're doing their earnings reports. EA is doing that, and so they may do something similar, at least what they're allowed. And just probably talking about the next Mass Effect and how that's their next big project. And then I think later this year, we'll get some kind of announcement about Mass Effect going into full production. I've seen speculation that that could happen around the anniversary of BioWare, which I think is in April or May. We could see that. And then we probably won't get anything until N7 Day. I do think this year's N7 Day will be significant. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it's kind of a blowout in ways. But the thing we have to keep in mind is that, ever since I even got into making content for Mass Effect, it's always been in the back of my mind, Mass Effect, they're talking about it a little, but it's not the next thing. The next thing is Dragon Age, and that's not the case anymore. And in the last 3-4 years, I've been making content for Mass Effect since the Legendary Edition came out. It's always been kind of second fiddle, and the information we've gotten has been mostly minimal. That's not going to be the case anymore. Now, any big game announcements from BioWare for the next 2-3 years, 4 years maybe, will be Mass Effect. Now, we may not get them every couple months. It may just happen a couple times a year. But I think Mass Effect fans need to realize that the days of only getting Mass Effect info from leaks or speculation or N7 Day are over. We're going to be getting it more often. Even if you look at Dragon Age The Veilguard, 2-3 years ago before it came out, I assume when they were just beginning full production, we were getting blogs about how they were making gameplay and mechanic decisions and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff we will start getting for Mass Effect. It may not be a lot this year. I suspect it'll be more in further years, but this is all probably going to happen quicker than a lot of people realize. I think it's always a misconception that, not every game is like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead or, some of these other projects like from CDPR and stuff. Like most big AAA games get made in 2 or 3 years of actual full production. And the Veilguard's no exception to that. Now there's some other stuff there with some previous iterations of the game and things like that. But for the most part, we're probably beginning a 2 to 3, maybe 4 at the worst, year push for the next Mass Effect. And that's putting us in the 2027, 28, possibly 29 timeframe for a release. But I think if there's any solace to be had, if that's too long for you, there's lots of good games coming out, and we're likely going to start getting information. Now, the last thing I'll talk about is how I will kind of miss the period before this of Mass Effect coverage, for me at least, because it's all been pure speculation. A little bit informed, a little bit inferred, but for the most part, it's been pure speculation on some extremely limited trailers and teasers and concept art and stuff like that. Moving forward, we'll start getting concrete information. And that's cool because it's fun to talk about the kind of game we're actually going to get. But it will kind of start to lose that kind of mysticism or whatever of, being able that anything's possible, because they're going to start narrowing over the next 2-3 years. They'll start narrowing what this actual game is going to look like to the point of the game it's actually going to be, not this wildest dreams game that could be anything that any of us want. It's going to narrow down to the actual game it's going to be. And I just caution people to have high hopes and have your own wants and things like that, but to realize that this will have to be a game that has to be made. Its scope will have to narrow in some capacity. And it may not be everything you want, but much how I look at games nowadays, I try not to worry too much about the game that I want and to try to appreciate the game that they made. That's how I feel about Veilguard and lots of other games that have come out recently. So soak this in these last few months or whatever of being able to wildly speculate about anything, but also enjoy the journey of seeing what this game will actually become. And I really encourage everyone to keep an open mind, be excited, be a little cautious as well. Maybe don't go over the top of things. And I hope you'll do this journey with me. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to explore it. I will hit, every little bit of info that comes out and speculation and all of that. I'll cover it all. And I think that's going to pick up quite a bit here in the next year or two. So with that, subscribe to the channel if you want that. If you want Mass Effect news and podcast and information and speculation, all that. Leave a comment below with what you think about all of this, how soon you think we'll start getting some more Mass Effect info. Hit the like button if you want more people to see this so we can all chat. If you really want to support the content I make, from these videos to my podcast and even my streams that I do whenever I can, consider becoming a YouTube member, where you get videos like this early and you get a few other perks as well. Check out all of my other content and other ways to support down in the description of the video. That is all I have for this one. So until next time.